Welcome to Enlightened Evolution.
I'm Cay.
And I'm Christina.
We're here to discuss the ebb and flow of our soul's healing and transformation through self-reflection, choosing intentionally, honoring thyself, and following your inner guide.
Thank you for joining this safe space with us. Good morning and welcome everyone to Enlightened Evolution. We are talking about anxiety this week. So before we get into that, Cay, how are you today?
Wonderful. Feeling great. How are you?
I'm all right. I have thoughts of going to the Humane Society today.
Why do you want to cry today?
Is that what it sounded like I said?
No, but when I go to the Humane Society, it makes me want to cry.
I was like, wait, what? Yeah, it does. It is sad, but I might want to adopt another cat. You're like, why do you want to cry today?
Well, that's well, I remember before Ambi passed away, you were looking to get another cat, and then she was going through her thing, and
Yeah,
then so you didn't. So you're back there now. You want to get another kitty now.
I think so. It's been like 7 months since she's passed, and I found a really awesome new vet. The vet we were going to before, like, misdiagnosed so much and was so fucking expensive.
Mm,
And this week, I just took everyone for their annual vaccinations, and it was literally like half of the price of my old
yeah.
vet. And I was like, okay, I can afford to adopt another cat.
Aw.
I mean, we've had some medical issues this year with Ambi passing
Mhm.
and all of her stuff. And then our other cat had a really bad UTI. Then our other cat had dental work. And I'm like, damn, these are like running me up like a kid, but they're still cheaper than having a kid. So,
Yeah, let me tell you, it is. Oh
so I'm
goodness.
like, I could take another one. We'll see. We'll see
Oh,
what's out there.
I
I
wish
know the Humane
Beyonce.
Society is so depressing.
It is. That's where I got Beyonce. I wish she would play better with other animals. She is like, not having it. So my son brought home a rat not too long ago, and I didn't tell you this, but why did this little motherfucker find a way to get out of his cage?
Oh no.
And he's like, "Do you have my rat?" I'm like, "No. Where's your rat?" He's like, "He escaped. He's too smart." I'm like, "Oh my god, either this thing's going to die in the house somewhere or the cat's going to find it and she's definitely going to kill it." But he ended up finding it, like, climbed on top of his dresser, he put it back, like, ugh, thank goodness
Whew.
he found it.
I thought that was going somewhere else.
It's yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, nothing too nothing too shocking and, entertaining, but
I thought Beyonce got him.
oh my gosh. Sonny would have been so devastated, but he wanted another cat so bad, and that's what he does to punish me. He went and bought a rat instead, so
I was gonna ask you how she like is she interested in the rat or
we haven't, like, introduced her, which would not be
okay.
we just kinda he just has the cage for the rat in his room, and she doesn't really seem like she cares too much, but I don't know, she's kinda sneaky and creepy, so she might go down there and just stare at it sometimes. I don't
Mhm.
know.
Like,
Yeah.
that's hilarious. Well, that gave me anxiety. I was like, "Oh no, I'm about to hear
Yeah.
about a dead rat."
Oh my gosh, yeah, no, it did give me
Oh.
anxiety in that moment, but thank goodness it's not dead, poor thing.
Uh, yes. So, we're talking about anxiety today. This came from one of our listeners, this request. So, thank you for requesting. We sent out on our Instagram story, we asked for suggestions. What would you like to hear about? And this was one of the topics. It's a hot topic. I think everyone has experienced anxiety at some point in their life because there is natural anxiety that you experience, and there's also anxiety disorders. And we're going to talk about both of those. So, just to define it, people with anxiety disorders frequently have intense, excessive, persistent worry or fear about everyday situations. So, things that other people really wouldn't give too many thoughts about, we obsess over it and it consumes our thoughts. Often, anxiety disorders will have repeated episodes of sudden feelings of intense anxiety, of fear and terror. You might reach a peak within minutes, and these are often called panic attacks. Not everyone that has anxiety will experience panic attacks, but it is a common theme of it. So, normal anxiety is when maybe you have to go give a speech in front of someone, or you're going to a job interview and you get those butterflies in your stomach and you get nervous, or you're going on a first date and you're like, is this person going to like me? That's normal anxiety that you would experience every day. It becomes, and there's so many different anxiety disorders. I don't think that we'll really break down each one, but where it flips from normal anxiety to anxiety disorders is when these feelings of anxiety and panic, they interfere with your daily activities. They keep you up at night. You obsess over them. It's hard to control these thoughts. And they're a lot of times out of proportion to the actual or perceived danger. And it may start as early as childhood and continue on throughout your life. I know that's been the case for me.
Mhm.
They are
Same.
the most common mental health problem in the United States. So if you experience anxiety, you're not alone. Over 40 million adults in the US experience anxiety, which is about 19% of the population.
I feel like
And then,
everybody as a human has to experience some level of anxiety. I don't think
well,
there's
yes. So this percentage is
like the
actually
disorder.
having anxiety disorders. Yes. So like a diagnosable disorder. Yeah, not just anxiety, because we all have it at some point. And then both anxiety and depression are more prevalent in women. It's almost like a 2-to-1 ratio for that, especially during women's reproductive years, which, if
Mhm.
you listen to our episode on flowing with your cycle, that is, you can see why, because our hormones fluctuate so much during our reproductive years. Of course, we're going to experience these things. What has been your experience with anxiety? Do you feel like you have normal anxiety, or
I
has it
feel
ever been
like
like a disorder for you?
I've never been diagnosed, but I feel like depending on where I am in my cycle, if I'm in my luteal phase, I'm definitely at a much higher level of anxiety. For sure. I think my past experiences are the root of what causes my present anxiety. You mentioned like it coming from childhood, like my mother was extremely anxious and I watched it, like not even knowing what I was, learning. So I became anxious as a child because of her behavior. And then I think that being in certain relationships, romantic relationships, has caused my anxiety to peak, especially when I was in like relationships that were unhealthy. I think it still even lingers with me that I'm like always doing something wrong, or my friends are mad at me, or I'm going to make the wrong decision about something. So, you got to, I mean, I can easily bring myself back from that now. But yeah, I think the root of my anxiety is definitely just from past experiences and just trying to navigate like the present moments, like reminding myself continuously that I'm safe right now and I don't need to be anxious.
Yeah. And you mentioned something that I find very interesting when I was diving deep into the research on anxiety. Like, I've had anxiety my whole life. I feel like I know a lot about it, but I was like, I want to pull up, some actual. So in our resources, we have tons of links to research articles and things like that. But one of the causes of anxiety is hereditary. But I wonder how much of it is nature versus nurture. So is it truly in our DNA? Or is it you said you were raised by an anxious mom. Do we learn these behaviors because we see them modeled for us? Or is it truly in our DNA? Or is it a mix of both?
Oh, I mean, it's probably a mix of both, but I do think anxiety is one of those things that I don't want to say easily. I think it's one of those things that can be managed through changes.
Mhm. It can, but it also can be very consuming of your life
Mhm.
and feel like you can't get past it
Oh, yeah.
all
There's
of a
been
sudden.
times I've pulled up to the grocery store needing to go grocery shopping and could not handle it and turned back around and left. Like, it's
That's what
fallen.
I asked
Hmm? What were you gonna say?
Jordan, when does he experience anxiety? He said at the grocery store.
Yeah. And it's not always, but there's been certain times in my life where I've been able to push through, like, okay, I gotta walk into this class to, like, go to the hospital or do, like, in nursing school, like, my anxiety was at an all-time high there, and
Oh, yeah.
certain things that have happened, with my kids and just difficulties being a mom, your anxiety peaks. I mean, my anxiety has peaked just worrying about their safety and things like sometimes rational, sometimes irrational. I think every mom experiences that. Just the irrational fear of like something happening to your kids and then your kids growing up and doing things reckless because they're teenagers and it's like, okay, like you really could jump on this, four-wheeler right now and crack your head like, like so it's a constant thing as a parent having anxiety about just their safety for me.
Mhm. My mom was also a very anxious person, and so I think it's probably a little bit of both for me. I have anxiety, probably hereditary, and then also the things that happen to me. But I find it interesting. I love research that like looks at adopted people and nature
Mm.
versus nurture.
Mhm.
There was a controversial, and I don't remember the name of the study, but where like triplets were dispersed to like three different homes and like three very different types of living and how their nature versus nurture. They found that, some aspects were different, but then a lot of aspects were the same, regardless if they were raised in like a poor, low income house or a rich home, whatever. But my girlfriend, she has adopted two girls. They are from different bio parents. And one of them has extreme anxiety, and the other one is just very chill, very calm, just go with the flow. And so I wonder, there must have to be some hereditary to
Yeah.
that.
How old
I
was she when she adopted her?
They were both newborns, so they've
Oh,
had
okay.
them since.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
but
Interesting.
it's interesting, yeah. So in addition to possibly hereditary causes of anxiety, trauma is the number one cause of anxiety. So having traumatic events tend to trigger anxiety disorders and make people more prone to anxiety. I do want to mention there are some medical conditions that could cause anxiety. So an actual true cause that if you treat the actual cause, you might not have anxiety. Heart disease makes sense, diabetes, thyroid problems, especially hyperthyroid. So when you
Mhm.
have hyperthyroid, your heart tends to beat a bit faster, and anytime your heart is beating faster, it activates that fight or flight, which would also activate anxiety. Respiratory disorders, so like COPD and asthma, I can only imagine if you're having trouble breathing and
You
feeling like you're
can't
not getting
breathe.
enough oxygen, right? That's going to
Yes.
make you anxious. Drug misuse or withdrawal, definitely stimulant drugs, cocaine, meth, those types of things. A lot of people, myself included, will have anxiety with like marijuana, and
Mhm.
I think it's classified as a CNS
Yeah,
depressant. It's a hallucinogen, but some people experience that with it, but other people treat their anxiety with it.
they
So,
do. That's funny. I had a conversation with my friend yesterday, and he's like, "It takes away my anxiety and gives it to me all at once." And because if you do it on a consistent basis, you're like, you just I don't know. I do feel like there's a withdrawal to it. I know some people want to argue that it's not addictive or whatever, but and you smoke and then you're fine. But you
mhm.
don't do it as often. You don't feel the super effects to it. Caffeine. Did you mention caffeine?
Yes.
Oh my
No, not
gosh.
yet, but caffeine's
Oof.
huge.
If if I eat well in the morning, in a certain time frame of drinking my coffee, like, I'm good. But if I only drink coffee and then I start running, I get my peak of energy, and then I wait to eat, I will just have my anxiety will be at an all-time high.
Right, and
Off some
that is
coffee.
from a biological cause because you
Mhm.
have all this caffeine pumping through your veins, your heart's beating fast. So there's not actually like a threat that you're but it just heightens everything for you.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, I experienced that with caffeine
Like
for
every
sure.
day.
Yeah. There's like this sweet spot with my
There
caffeine
is.
level, and there's times, like, when I reach that certain caffeine level when everything is right in the world, but if I
Yeah,
go past that, then I get the anxiety.
for sure. For sure.
It's a delicate balance. And you mentioned so withdrawing from different kinds of drugs or alcohol can also cause anxiety. Your body is craving that substance, and it's wanting to know, "When am I gonna get it again?" Also, if you are coming off of anti-anxiety medications, that can cause anxiety. It's like a rebound, which
Mhm.
sucks.
Or any type of
If you have
medications, even pain meds. If you
Oh,
get
yeah.
hurt and you're on pain meds and you have to come off of those, like, that's like, withdrawal's awful feeling from anything.
Yeah. Another one they have listed is chronic pain, and I would extend that to say really any chronic disease.
Mhm.
Any,
Like autoimmune and
disease you're dealing Yeah.
mhm.
And especially the ones that fluctuate, and when you get into that period of like, "Okay, this is, I'm feeling better. I'm feeling good," but then all you can think about is, "Okay, when am I gonna feel bad again? When is the ball gonna drop?"
And
That's
just
gotta be
worrying about your
horrible.
health in general.
Absolutely. Ugh,
I'm
I'm
more
getting ready to
mindful of it.
go. Yeah.
I'm just more
I'm
mindful
I'm
as I
getting
get
ready to
older,
go
but you're getting ready to where? Sorry.
to do my annual, like, checkup with my doctor, and I've had a instance over the last year where I had a syncopal episode, near syncopal, and I could feel my heart, doing some funky rhythm. I don't know if it was SVT or what, and then I almost passed. Everything went black, but I bared down and, like, Valsa
Mm,
maneuvered myself out of it, and I didn't go seek treatment at that time because, like, I'm also a medical professional and I know what's gonna happen. If I go to the ER, my rhythm's gonna be fine because I just pulled myself out of it. They're not gonna see anything. I'm gonna go see a cardiologist, spend this money. Like, it just goes and goes. This is how my anxiety works, and I'm like,
yeah, you'll be
then I'm
there
gonna
for
pay
2
all this
days.
money, right, to have a Holter monitor, and then they're not gonna see anything on it because it's so random when it happens and I can't induce it. So I'm like, in my mind, I'm debating, do I tell my doctor about this or do I just wait and see if it happens again? I feel like nurses are the worst
We are. I
patients.
haven't had a physical. I will go to my OB and do my women's health, but I haven't been to a doctor to do, like, normal things, like a yearly
Yeah.
exam or blood work or any of that.
Do you guys we get a discount if we do it every year for our insurance. You have to like turn it into your insurance and you get a discount on your insurance.
I there's, like, all these perks and stuff, and some of my nurse friends at work know about all that. I need to get with it and just do it, you
You're
know?
like, I just work here.
Yeah, I do. Let's take my kids, but not myself, you know?
Yeah. The last one I have on medical reasons is there are some rare tumors that like produce fight or flight hormones. So that would really suck.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah. I guess we could get into symptoms. Is there anything else you'd like to talk
That
about?
causes anxiety. I was gonna
Hmm.
say you already mentioned dating, just going to work in general sometimes, and then having to go home after work without having the time. Like, as soon as I get out of work, I have to go home and be a parent. I have to do dinner. Like, I don't get a second from, like, leaving a 12.5 hour shift, listen to patients and buzzers and overstimulated, and then I have to go straight home and deal with kids and emotions and homework, and so that piques my anxiety when I don't have a time to breathe when I get out of work. I think financial strain, did you mention that? Financial strain
No,
is huge, like,
that's,
for people with anxiety. I mean, it's an everyday worry when you don't know, you're struggling to pay your bills and things come up that are unexpected.
oh, yeah.
Uh
And that goes hand in hand with medical things, people
Mhm.
that have especially chronic or even just going to the doctor alone. If you don't have health insurance and you are sick and that financial burden
Yeah.
of going, it's crazy.
Yeah. This doesn't necessarily pertain to me, and I don't know if it does to you, but I was just looking up things that, like, people are anxious for. I do have a link that I'll send you that you can attach to this, but people are apparently really anxious about political issues,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and if you're watching the news all day long, I guess if why wouldn't you be? And I
Oh,
see
yeah.
older people all the time, like, cussing at the TV depending on what party they you wanna vote for, you know?
Yeah.
And not sleeping enough, not prioritizing your sleep. That always gives me anxiety when it gives me anxiety knowing that I may not get enough sleep, and then when I actually
Yeah.
don't get the sleep, I'll develop anxiety. When other people drive and I'm in the car, it gives me anxiety. I don't like it.
Yeah. And I will like I I don't wanna say I'm a bad driver, but I understand being a passenger in my car, why you would fear for your life.
I did same. Exact same. I told my friend that yesterday. He's like, "No, you're good." I'm like,
And I
I
feel like I experience that more and more as an adult. Like, Jordan will be driving and he loves to ride people's asses, and that pisses me off. But it pisses me
Oh,
off because, like, I can't control the brake. Like, we are far
yeah.
too close to this person in front of us.
That gives me, like, severe anxiety. Like, I would like,
Mhm.
full-fledged disorder, you could call 'em when I'm riding with somebody else and they're driving reckless or on somebody's ass in the car, yeah. I think another thing when your family or friends that you love, like, it gives me anxiety to watch them make really bad choices that hurt theirself, because I think it's a
Yeah,
control thing.
absolutely.
Like, I'm out of control when someone else is driving, I'm out of control when other people are making bad choices, and my kids, family, whatever, and those are I think that's about it. Oh,
Absolutely.
the pandemic, I think, caused, like, a worldwide anxiety attack.
Oh, yeah. It's like, can I go get my groceries without getting sick and dying? I don't
Mhm.
know.
Yeah.
I I was trying to remember back to when I first felt anxiety. One of the anxiety disorders is separation anxiety, and I absolutely experienced that as a kid. For the longest time, it was just me and my mom, and then she married my stepdad, who I call my dad, when I was, like, 7, and I vividly remember their wedding, and this is the first time, like, I remember experiencing anxiety. It was the first night that I remember spending away from my mom. They were gonna go spend the night, have, like, a little honeymoon night after the wedding, and my aunt and my mom's best friend were, like, holding me back, this little 7-year-old,
Aw.
and I'm just screaming and, like, tearing at their skin and, like, just wanting to be with my mom. I'm like, "What do you mean you're taking her away?" And, like, I vividly remember that. And the separation anxiety with my mom got better after, like, my dad moved in. At that time, I was still sleeping in the same bed as my mom, so, like,
Aw, yeah.
it was hard for me to be away from her, but it's interesting.
Do you feel
And
like
then it just went on from there.
Yeah, do you feel like in romantic relationships, do you feel like that evolved to having an anxious attachment style with your partners?
Absolutely. Yep. So my attachment style for the long and it's still something I'm healing from. I'm much better in it, but and I'm much quicker to recognize it, but that has been my attachment style for
Mhm.
the longest time. And it's still something so I mentioned to you before we started recording, I just recently got back from my trip to Michigan, and anytime I spend time with my family and I did this as a kid too, we would go and visit my cousins in South Carolina, and then when we would come back, I would, like, cry the whole time, I would feel, like, this huge separation anxiety from being with my family, and I still feel that to this day with, like, when I go and visit my family and then I come back, there's, like, this period of, like I don't wanna say loss, but it just feels I don't know. It feels hard to be away from them again after
Yeah,
being with them. And at the same time, like, I know I don't wanna live in Michigan, but then
right.
I'm like, I miss them so much, so It's hard.
Even though I would love to have you here with me.
I will say that I had a amazing time in Michigan. The weather was perfect. It was a little humid in well, everywhere. I mean, and it's humid here, but, like,
You
the
were
day you
here
and I
during
got
yeah, you were
together,
here during a really humid time.
it was,
It
and
was
my
a
hair, like, was
I know.
would not hold a curl.
That's so funny.
But it was
Yeah.
sunny almost every single day. Like, we only had 1 day of rain, so it was beautiful. Jordan loved Michigan. I truly forgot just how beautiful the coastline is and, like, how crystal
Mhm.
clear and gorgeous the water is, and, like, there's no sharks in there.
You actually I don't wanna pique
Uh-oh.
anybody's anxiety in Michigan. I just saw and I hope it's a lie because there's so many lies on the internet. I don't know who was doing somebody on Joe Rogan, and they were saying, like, there's sharks that swim up this river, and sometimes they enter the Great Lakes, and I'm like, "How do they even survive in the cold?"
I don't think they'd be able to survive. There is, like, physically, there's waterways they could go through to
Yeah.
get there because my brother's old karate coach, sailed from the Great Lakes to the Caribbean.
Oh,
So it is
wow.
possible,
Yeah.
but they also need to be in salt water, and the Great Lakes are freshwater, so I don't think they would survive there probably.
Well, I think their point and I'm no, like, marine biologist, I don't even know if that's the right term to know what a shark is, but their point was that
Mhm.
they have gills that need to breathe the oxygen in the water, so it doesn't matter if it comes from salt or fresh water,
Maybe so.
which, like, please don't. Please, God, I don't want sharks in Lake Huron, like, I was just swimming in there yesterday, like, I don't wanna have to
No.
unlock that fear of sharks.
No, especially, like, with all the shark attacks that are going on in Florida right
I
now.
know, I know.
It's wild. We're just sitting here piquing everyone's anxiety. I do wanna say, though, learning discernment is a huge part of dealing with your anxiety because have you seen or heard of these spiders that are coming to Michigan that are venomous and huge? Have you heard that?
No, but we've had the brown recluses here for a few years now, I think, and those will
Oh,
bite you and your skin will rot, so, I mean, if there was a bigger one,
true.
maybe I'd see it coming.
Well, I know you don't have social media so much, so, people post these articles on social media, and I've seen a bunch of people from Michigan reposting this about these Juro spiders, and they're coming to Michigan, and they're venomous, and they're huge. We've had them here in Georgia for years.
Oh,
And the way this article made it sound is like, they're gonna hurt everyone, and it tried to induce anxiety. That's what a lot of
yeah.
news does, is it tries
Yes.
to incite fear in you because if you're fearful, you'll pay attention and you'll want more of it. And I saw so many people commenting on the article and they were like, "We've had them here for years. They do not bother people." Like, I have them outside my house right now. They're big, they're beautiful, they're like bright green, but they don't bite humans. Their mouths are too small. They eat insects, some small
Ooh,
birds.
send me a picture if you next time you see one.
Yeah. But yeah, so and they do have huge webs. They're more of a nuisance than anything. Like if
Mhm.
they do make a web on your house, like it's just a pain in the ass, but they're not gonna kill you.
Yeah. We don't need to have that high of a level
We
of
don't need to
anxiety
have
about it.
fear of them. No.
Right.
No, I see them, I'm like, "Hey, spider."
Yeah, that's funny.
Uh, Should we jump into symptoms?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I know that we each have our own list, and I think that we have a lot of similar things on our list. I become easily irritated when I'm anxious.
Yeah.
That's my number one trigger to myself when I know I'm like, "Okay, like, I'm just anxious right now."
Mhm.
But I like, instantly irritated with like, especially, like, my kids or even at work with some people that are just, idiots, and then I just say I don't know how else to say it. S so
Yeah.
that's definitely one of my first symptoms. What about you? Do you find yourself becoming, like, irritated?
I'm trying to think of, like, my f I typically don't notice that I'm in an anxiety episode is what I will call it until I start losing sleep. Um, because I guess my
Mhm.
body is just so used to it that I I don't pick up always on the little things, but I do think that I do become more irritated quicker. But my it really manifests for me in losing sleep, and I'll just wake up in the middle of the night and have a racing heart rate, just cold out of my sleep.
Yeah.
I think I think my body suppresses it so much during the day, and then
Mhm.
once my subconscious unlocks when I sleep, that's the only time my body can be like, "Hey, we are anxious. Can we do something about
Yeah,
this?"
I noticed that when I'm sleeping, if I do have, like, those higher levels that you say that you don't address during the day, I clench my jaw, like, terribly, and I'll wake up with the worst like, my whole neck and this is because I'm kinda older now too, like, my whole neck will be in pain, and my whole jawline will just it will ache from being, like, just clenched all night, for sure.
Yeah, same. I woke up with a horrible and I don't even know, but a horrible headache this morning from
Mhm.
clenching my jaw all night.
Yeah.
At
Do you
least
wear
I
the
slept through the night.
I need to wear those guards. I can't sleep with nothing in my mouth like that.
So I have ruined my teeth by grinding my teeth
Yeah.
at night, and it's funny because I just went to the dentist for this, and they were like, "Oh, well, that's because of stress. I can't really help you with that." And I'm like, "No shit." But the dentist always wants to give you this giant, like, mouth guard that's so
Yeah.
bulky, and I used to have one, and in the middle of the night, I would throw it across the room. I didn't even know it. I would just wake up, it wouldn't be in my mouth, and I would find it across the room. I I have went to Dollar Tree,
Yeah, I was
and
gonna
they have
say.
these tiny little thin ones that it's just a little
Oh.
thin plastic that goes across your teeth and just a little thin plate that goes between your back teeth, and I can keep that in all night, and I just switch them out regularly. They're only, well, $1.25 now, but
Yeah. Yeah,
they
yeah,
work.
they did increase it. I'll have to look at that because the dentist will definitely charge you like $200 for this bite guard. And I was gonna say, like, you can just go buy like a football guard or something,
Yes,
something like that for like $10. But Dollar Tree is
you
even better.
absolutely can. Yeah, if you're okay with the bulky ones, definitely go get one of those are gonna provide probably more protection
Mhm.
for your teeth. Have you ever had a dream where your teeth fall out?
Oh my gosh, yes. And there's like a hair in my microphone that's tickling me, I'm sorry. Yes, and I can't remember. It doesn't have to do with, like, losing control or something like that because you can go on, like, dreammoods.com and you can find the reasons, like, why you dream all these crazy things. Well, their interpretation of it, you know? I used to love going on
Yeah.
there and kinda, like, seeing the reasons my
Oh, yeah.
dreams. Oh, yeah, the teeth falling out are the worst.
I
I've had, like, my nails falling off too. That's another one I've had. I
Ooh.
know. Weird.
They definitely say it's a stress dream for sure, and it's usually when you're grinding your teeth really hard
Yeah.
at night too.
Yeah,
Ugh,
that
I hate those dreams.
I know, that makes complete sense. Ugh, yeah, for sure. Let me see here. I would
I will
say
say
I was gonna say my stomach. I was gonna say my stomach, like,
yes.
it hasn't been like this a lot recently, but in the past, like, I would have to just, like, really make it to the bathroom quick. It would it would my anxiety would just, like, I don't know, it would it's so crazy how the hormones will just, like, cripple you in so many ways.
Yeah, it can cause nausea, it can cause diarrhea. A lot of people that have IBS or irritable bowel syndrome also have anxiety.
My god, that would give me anxiety constantly if I had that.
Oh, yeah, because it's like, I gotta know immediately where the bathroom is,
Yeah,
be ready at any time.
yeah.
I definitely experience increased heart rate. Have you ever experienced a panic attack?
I would say yes, I have. Yeah,
So,
I have.
people think of panic attacks as the visual you can see someone hyperventilating, breathing heavy, like losing control. And a lot of times that is what it is. That's how I've experienced them. But they're also, people can experience them as well, where all that's still going on, but they just like almost like an absent seizure where they're just
Mhm.
like blanked out and they're just not really moving much at all, and they just kind of disassociate and like go into their anxiety. Did you get a chance to see Inside Out too?
Not yet, but it's on my list. Kyla watched it without me, and it hurt my feelings.
Oh my gosh,
I know.
girl. They do an amazing job of illustrating what anxiety is
Oh, I can't
like.
wait to see it.
Anx- It's this new emotion in Inside Out too, and the way it like worries about stuff. And I love it too because, and we're going to get into next episode. I think I forgot to mention, y'all, this is a two-parter, because there's so much to talk about with anxiety. Our next episode, we're going to talk about how to treat it and deal with it. And now I just lost my train of thought. Oh, internal family systems therapy, I think, is a great way to deal with it. And the movie does a great job of showing how anxiety is not there to harm you. It's really there to protect you. And that's what its interest is protecting
Mhm.
you. But it manifests in these ways that tend to be harmful.
Yeah, another
I
thing we didn't
remember
mention sorry, another thing we didn't mention earlier that
God,
creates anxiety is social media. Just being on your
oh
phone
yeah.
constantly, having it in your hand constantly, worrying about notifications constantly, wondering what other people are doing. My anxiety has decreased so much just not having any social media.
I bet. I really need to take a bit of a break from it, because I this past week with my cycle, like I've been
Mhm.
experiencing more anxiety and some depression, and I noticed I've been scrolling so much on my
Yeah,
phone,
increased
and I
scrolling,
need
yeah.
to just get out in nature and
Mhm.
leave the phone behind.
Mhm. Yeah.
I experienced my first panic attack that I can remember in college in nursing school. It's so freaking stressful, nursing school is. I remember I
Yep.
had, like, a big A&P exam coming up the next day, and I was just in bed, like, I had studied. I felt like, "I'm surely gonna fail this. I don't wanna fail this." I don't wanna be held back in the nursing program or, ruin my chances of being able to complete the program, and so I'm just, like, in bed, like, bawling my eyes out, hyperventilating, could not get it under control. And at that point, I was like 19, I think. So I went to the doctor and got some medication at that point, and it did help me. But I would definitely say that's my first experience with it. And I've only had a handful of panic attacks. Some people with panic disorder, they have it very, very often. I remember as an ER nurse, and I hated this. So, made it through nursing school. I'm an ER nurse, and a patient comes in having a panic attack, and they needed us to give them a little Ativan to help them calm down.
Mhm.
And the response from my colleagues of basically like, "Oh, this person's just drug seeking,"
Yeah, we
like
get that a lot, the judgment of it.
mhm, and I'm like, "You obviously have never experienced this before
Mhm.
to know, like, how it literally you feel like you are dying."
Yeah.
And it broke my heart to see my colleague, and I know that medical professionals, they get callous and they get burnout, and it is hard, like when your patient before that comes in via ambulance and they're saying they got a toothache, and the first thing they say is, "I want Dilaudid and a turkey sandwich."
For sure.
And I'm like, "I thought you had a toothache."
You for sure. Yeah,
And you certainly
ugh,
aren't getting Dilaudid for a toothache.
I don't understand why as a nurse myself, I don't understand why you would even fight about it with a patient, especially if the doctor's willing to give it to you. If a little bit of Xanax is gonna have them calm down and have a better day, that means you have a better day. Why do you care?
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. And so I like took it upon myself to take that patient and make sure that she felt seen, and that, you know, not the way my coworker was making her feel. And I
Yeah.
just felt so bad for her. So I've been on both sides of it, treating it and experiencing it. And I'm I'm kind of grateful that I've had the experience with that before I went into nursing, because I think it definitely changed my outlook on it. And I think that's the case in so many times in the medical field. Like, as a medical professional, there's no way you can experience every diagnosis and every symptom.
Yeah.
So you have to take your patient's word for it, and you just have to understand that it might be outside of your experience and your understanding.
Yeah, I've watched anxiety in my patients. I've watched them manifest it into okay, I guess we're going into AFib now, alright. You have
Oh
COPD, and I
shit.
guess you're having COPD exacerbation, like, you know, I watched them trigger theirself into full-blown anxiety attacks.
Mhm.
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 I lose my inspiration to be creative when I go through anxious episodes. I don't have the motivation. Even I consider, like, even getting my house how I want it and, making things look nice. Like, that's also kind of like a creative outlet for me. I try to make it fun, and get things together, and I just can't. So I don't really have the inspiration to be creative, and I guess I also, like, procrastinate, and I don't do those things,
Mhm.
to
Yep.
get inspired when I'm, like, stuck in that anxious state.
And that can become a vicious cycle, because, some
Mhm.
people feel anxious because there's so much they need to do. I had a friend like this who, her laundry would just be piled up, her house, almost like a hoarder, like you would have to like make a path through it. And it would give her so much anxiety seeing that, but also her anxiety was keeping her from doing it as well.
Yeah, it's like, where do you start?
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I notice that my memory is slip like, if I'm in an anxious state, I don't remember things, like, in the future, I won't remember things as well, like, what was going on during the time I was anxious, and while I'm anxious, my memory also isn't the best. So I
Mhm.
notice, like, my memory slips.
Yeah. I noticed too, like, you have trouble thinking about anything other than what is your present worry. So that is a like daytime trigger for me. I'll know, like, if someone's talking to me about something and I have trouble concentrating on what they're
Mhm.
saying, and then as soon as they're done talking, I go right back to whatever I was worrying about. That lets me know, okay,
Yeah.
we're having a little trouble controlling this right now.
Yeah.
Let me see, is there anything we didn't S So, the feeling of nervousness, restlessness, you might be I do this a lot too, like tapping my leg or some kind of rhythmic moving. I don't know, if I'm having a stroke today or what. I
Mhm,
can't
don't
talk.
say that, shit.
But I think that's also a way that your body tries to, like, soothe itself, but
Yeah.
also people that are nervous will tend to have that rhythmic moving
Yeah.
or trembling, sweating. I definitely So when I get like naturally nervous when I have to like speak in front of say our C-suite or something. Like I teach on a weekly basis and I've worked past those nerves, but when I first started having to speak in front of a lot of people, my chest would get super red, my chest, neck and face would. I would start sweating more. I will say my heart rate and blood pressure do still increase when I have to public speak, and I know it because of my strange anatomy and how my aorta is wrapped around my trachea. It'll constrict it more, so
Oh
then
my
my voice will,
gosh.
like, get higher pitched,
Oh my
and I'll,
goodness.
like, have trouble breathing.
Yeah. Girl. Yeah, don't miss your appointment.
Yeah, I'm the worst. So I have a list of things that, if you think you're experiencing anxiety, a list of things to definitely go and see a doctor if these things are happening. So if you are worrying too much and it's interfering with your work, your relationships, your sleep, other parts of your life, if the fear, worry, anxiety is upsetting you and it's difficult to control, if you feel like you can rein it back in and get away from it, that's good. But if it's not controllable, definitely see a doctor. Anxiety and depression are comorbidities of each other. So if you feel like now your anxiety is turning into depression, definitely. see a doctor. If you are feeling like you need to use substances to numb or get away from the anxiety, I think that's a huge reason why people go into substance use is they just don't want to feel that anymore.
Mhm.
And
For sure.
if you
They want a
if you have a way to
distraction.
numb it, mhm, definitely. Now for me, it actually makes my anxiety worse if I am altered
Yeah.
because I
Oh,
want that
yeah.
control.
For sure. For sure.
If you think your anxiety could be linked to a physical health problem, so we listed some of those. If you think that that is the reason, you definitely want to see a medical professional. And then anxiety and depression can also lead to suicidal thoughts or behaviors. So if you're thinking anything like you would be better off not here, or I just don't want to wake up tomorrow, absolutely seek help right away.
Yes. Ooh.
And I got a list of complications of anxiety. I think we've mentioned some of them. We mentioned depression. While they are two separate diagnoses, two separate disorders, they often go hand in hand. So you might start with anxiety and it might lead to depression.
It
I
always
know that
does
that
for
was the
me.
case for me. Mhm.
Always, because then I
Same
get
for me.
really, really hard on myself. Why can't I
Yes.
control my impulses and my thoughts and my fears and all this anxiety and stress, and why can't I manage it? And then I just isolate and hermit mode.
Oh, yeah. Substance misuse, we mentioned that it can lead to that. Sleeping disturbances, that's what it does for me. I lose so much sleep when I am in anxiety. We mentioned the digestive and bowel problems. That was something like when I feel like right now I'm in the process. I have a lot of things in my tool belt to help me deal with anxiety. So
Mhm.
I have a much different relationship with it now. But up till my maybe 30s, I did not know how to control it. All I had was medication.
Yeah.
So in those times, like I had really bad gastric reflux. I would be nauseous every day, all day, especially overnight. And I was taking gastric reflux medication. I no longer have to take that. But that's just an example of how, like, when I started to heal my anxiety, that's when I could drop off that medication and not take it anymore. So it definitely was causing that for me. It can also cause headaches and chronic pain, and for a number of reasons. Like for me, the headaches stem from I clenched my jaw or
Yeah.
grinded my teeth all night, and now I have a headache all day because of my anxiety.
Mhm.
It can also lead to social isolation if you are trying to avoid the things that make you anxious, and maybe going out in public is one of them, going to work or going to school. And so then you just try to avoid them. And like you said, then you go into hermit mode.
I do. I'm better now with coping and managing, but it's it's been a struggle. I don't even think I realized I had anxiety. One this girl I used to be friends with told me, I think I was like 30, and she's like, "You have bad anxiety." I'm like, "Don't put that on me. Like, I don't have anxiety."
Right.
And she's like, "Are you kidding me? Like, we just made these whole plans. Like, we just made these whole plans and you're dressed and ready, and now all of a sudden, like, you're deciding not to go." Like, and I would do that all the time. I would just make all these plans, and then, it crippled me, the thought of having to get out and do something with
Actually
somebody,
do
or
them.
not being, like, liked by somebody, or any reason why, you just can't get yourself to get up and go somewhere. Like, I would cancel plans a lot.
Oh, yeah. I remember even more recently, I joined a local girls group for like making new friends.
Aw.
And I bought tickets to an event. It was a sound bath event at the aquarium in
Ooh.
Atlanta. So it's a good hour from my house. And when I purchased them, I'm like, yes, like I love sound baths. I love the aquarium. I'm like, this is going to be beautiful and I'm going to meet new people. And then the day of came, and I'm like, "Oh, well, it doesn't start until 7, and it's an hour away, and then how long is it gonna take? And then I'm gonna have to drive in traffic, and then I'm gonna have to make home, and I have to
Yeah.
work the next day." And my body, my mind just starts coming up with all of these reasons of why not to go.
Mhm.
And I didn't end up going, but I think now I try to notice when those things happen, and I try to have a conversation with myself like, "You on this day wanted to go and you were excited about these plans. What is happening today?" There's different parts of you that made the plans and different parts of you that are saying all the reasons why you
Mhm.
shouldn't go. And so having that internal dialogue with those parts.
Yes.
Anxiety also can just lead to poor quality of life in general. It has this ripple effect of causing all these other issues, and it really affects your relationships. Like, if you're
Oh,
constantly
yeah.
breaking plans with people, they're going to get upset with you, right?
Yeah, and they'll stop asking you.
Yeah.
Stop talking to you, stop asking you to go. Causes
For
fights, which
me,
creates more anxiety.
yeah, I I will get neurotic. I hope I'm not neurotic all the time, but I know I'm a fairly neurotic person,
Yeah.
and that's got to be hard to be a partner of someone. It's wild because like, when I was back in Michigan, I see so many things and I observe so many things. My mom had so much anxiety. She was getting married, and she didn't necessarily have anxiety about getting married. It was more about, like, being the center of attention for the day and all these different things. But I see myself in her,
Mhm.
and I know we've talked about this before of, like, oh, there's been so much time, like, where I didn't wanna be her at all, and it's it's funny because her husband, like, everything we do, he'd be like, "Oh, your mom does that too." Like, I, like, cut up, like, I know. Like, we were having pancakes, and I, like, cut them all up into bite-sized pieces before I start eating. That's just how I eat,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Oh, your mom does that too." And I'm like, "Stop it." But, I mean, she
Mhm.
raised me. That is who I
Yeah.
am a
Oh, yeah.
product of.
Oh, yeah. I recognize myself, like my mother and me all the time. I'm like, "Ugh," and it's not all bad, it's not all bad things,
No.
but, yeah, we definitely grow into a part of our mothers 100%.
Mhm. Absolutely. All right. Is there anything we want to mention in this segment?
I don't think so. Stay tuned next week for part 2 of this episode, where we're gonna go over resolutions and being able to recognize our anxiety with things to help with everything we've just discussed today. This is a long one today.
It is. All right. Well, thank you all for listening. Hopefully, you'll join us again next week. And if you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts.
You can also find us on YouTube. Namaste.
Namaste.